Spring is here. You probably just finished up doing your taxes. And in the vein of finances, this week we're going to focus on the first of a 2-week series, prioritizing your long-term retirement savings. So this year's iteration of spring cleaning for your financial life is going to focus on structuring and prioritizing where you're putting those dollars as part of the long-term financial or retirement plan. I don't know if it's just this time of year, but I've been getting a lot of questions recently, whether that's from our 20 and 30-year-old clients who are asking either, where do I get started? How do I start structuring these dollars? Are they going into 401ks, other investment products, or getting that on the opposite end for our clients who are in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, asking about how do we have those conversations with our kids and our grandkids. So to be candid, regardless of where you are in your investment life cycle, it's always a good idea to understand where are my dollars going and why. So we've developed a handy dandy little checklist here to help someone understand where should they get started and where should each additional dollar be going. I think this should spur some good conversations, both whether it's with you and your spouse, or again, to have those conversations with others in your life that may be coming to you for some of that financial advice. So first and foremost, as you can see, we're going to start at the bottom. And it really does start with that emergency savings account. And when I think of emergency savings, that's going to basically be 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Now, depending on how steady your income is, or if you're going to have any fluctuations in your near-term financial future or big decisions that need to be made around expenditures, 3 to 6 months is the average. That certainly doesn't mean that you can't keep more liquidity on the sidelines or more in that savings account. But the idea here is, first and foremost, you want to make sure there's something set aside just in case you have a big financial decision that comes up. And on the opposite end of that, we want to make sure that someone doesn't end up sitting on too much cash and aren't looking at how those dollars should be working for them long term. Now, once you've got that savings account established or those emergency reserves in place, that's where we focus on box 2 and 3. HSAs, as you'll see for box number 2, those are a wonderful vehicle for someone to invest in from the standpoint of it's the only investment that we can utilize that is triple tax-free. The dollars that go into an HSA are tax-free up front, or they decrease your taxable income. You can invest dollars in an HSA in most cases, and those also grow tax-free. And then when you take those out long-term for qualified health-related events, they come out tax-free as well. So HSAs are a wonderful vehicle. Now, not everybody is eligible for one. So that's something that you would need to check into to see if, depending on if you're eligible for other health insurance plans, whether or not you have an HSA option, or you could go open one of those on your own. And that moves us to box number 3. When I say defined contribution, just think 401k plans, 403b plans, simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, something where you are actively contributing dollars to a long-term retirement portfolio with the idea of growing those dollars over time. So when I'm talking to somebody about where they should get started or how much they should be putting into their 401k plan or their defined contribution plan, I always say first and foremost, you need to put at least dollars in there that is going to get you the largest or the maximum employer match if that is available. That's 100% rate of return. Getting that free money that comes from the match that your employer may be giving you is key. So when someone is getting started, focusing on 1 through 3, or if they're focused on getting their financial life organized, making sure that that savings account or those emergency reserves are in place. If you have that eligibility for an HSA and understanding how to utilize that from a triple tax-free nature, And then, of course, utilizing your retirement account, that defined contribution plan, and putting at least in what you're going to get in terms of your maximum employer match. Because again, that is a wonderful way to grow those investment dollars. Once those three things are established, hopefully we don't have a lot of debt on the books to begin with. But if we do, this is when we should start looking at paying down debt. Now, there's two different ways that we view debt: high interest rate debt and lower interest rate debt. So you can see by box number 4, we want to focus first on paying down those high interest rate loans. And a good rule of thumb is if dollars have an interest rate, or if those loans have interest rates at 6.25% or higher, that's a great place to start. Now, we know that as the Fed has been raising rates over the last 12 to 14 months, debt is becoming more expensive. So this may be a good opportunity to look at your personal balance sheet, the liability side of that, to see where those debt loads are and what the interest rates look like. If it's above 6.25%, this is when you should start paying down that debt or getting that paid off before you start looking at putting additional dollars into retirement. The reason why we look at 6.25 is a great place to start in terms of if you should be paying down your debt is in terms of what is the best use of those dollars. So if you're going to put $1 away into the market, it's reasonable to expect that long term in a fairly growth-oriented portfolio, 6.25% or more is something that you could target for your potential long-term rate of return. But for a lot of people, they don't want to take on the risk to get that long-term rate of return. So those dollars may be better spent paying down that high interest rate debt. So at this point, we've tackled the first 4 items on that checklist to get you prioritized for your long-term retirement savings. We're going to wrap it up here for this week and then jump back in next week to look at line items 5 through 9. With that in mind, if you have any questions over the next week, feel free to reach out so that we can have some of these discussions. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Turn the ball over. UCLA goes on like a 7-0 run. I'm like, and I turn it off for a little bit. I go and do something, get the kids to bed, come back. Oh no, they made a nice little run, whatever. Immediately UCLA goes on another run, and I'm just like, what the? And so I literally at halftime shut the game off and was just like, all right, I am the jinx here. And so I'm starting to watch it behind the scenes, and I literally did not turn it on until the 7-minute mark left because they were up 9. Yes. I'm like, great.
In the clear.
Immediately I turned it on. They start turning the ball over, and I'm just like, it's me. And in my mind, it's 100% me. But I'm like, nope. And I just started yelling at the TV, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm watching the finish of this thing. And yeah, that was incredible. Absolutely incredible.